When somebody starts investing, what are the first or what are the most common mistakes that you've seen people make when they choose their first investment for themselves?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that people don't do in investing is to understand themselves.
Yeah.
I think in life, when you are to find a career or to find a partner,
Yes.
I think the first step is to understand yourself before you go out there and look out for something.
Yes.
But I think in investing, a lot of people miss out on that aspect. And I think because they don't understand themselves, they end up making a lot of mistakes because they tend to go with herd mentality.
Yes.
When you don't know yourself, you go towards what's popular, and inevitably, in investing, herd mentality is a wealth destruction sort of a advice.
Yes.
So I think the most important thing is identifying your goals, investment goals. So what are you investing for? Very important is to understand your risk appetite.
Yeah.
So what are your goals? What are you saving for? How much of risk can you take, as a person? Which obviously is not an easy question to ask, but over time you will be able to, understand a lot better.
Yeah.
And third is, what should your allocation be?
Definitely.
On the basis of your risk profile. So I think people who don't understand these three things, tend to make a lot of mistakes when they start investing. So I think these are the three things which I would say investors need to think about before.
That's interesting, Prateek. Can you explain to us why looking out for investment goals, risk appetite, and asset allocation as important as you're saying it is?
Yeah, so all three are extremely important, and I think it's important to understand yourself, but it's also important not to wait too long.
Yeah.
I think you shouldn't spend 2-3 years thinking about these things.
Yes.
This should be a one-time activity, and you can revisit it, say, every 6 to 8 months time.
Okay.
But the reason why investment goals are important is because it really designs your horizon to invest.
Okay.
So suppose you have your goal is, so you're 35 years old, and if you're looking at retirement,
Yeah.
you're looking at 25-30 years of investing, where you are able to take more volatility and risk in your portfolio.
Yeah.
So goals are very important, and I believe that a lot of people misconstrue goals with age.
Okay.
They feel like if you're younger, you're more risk taking. If you're older, you're less risk taking.
Yeah.
I think it really depends on your goals.
Yeah.
Suppose there's an 85-year-old who's saving for his grandkids.
Yeah.
Then he can take a lot of risk. Whereas a 35-year-old who wants to buy a house in 6 years' time cannot take a lot of risk.
Yes.
So I think risk appetite, or at least should be on the basis of what your goals are.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Okay.
Number two is risk appetite. Once you know, say that these are my goals, how much risk can I take?
Yes.
And this is very important because most investors tend to just optimize for returns. They're like, boss, कौन सा fund है जहाँ पे मेरा return सबसे ज़्यादा बनेगा?
Yeah.
And inevitably what happens is that fund ends up becoming a very risky fund. So I think it's very important for investors to understand how much of risk can I take as a person.
Definitely.
Am I okay with my portfolio going down by 20%, or 30%, or 40%?
Yeah.
And these are short term. Obviously, long term your portfolio will do well, but in the interim, anything can happen. Markets can fall. Like COVID, for example, market fell by 30%, 40%. So I think you have to really understand, what is your risk appetite towards volatility. And if you think that you're a very conservative person, then you should ideally have a small equity allocation and larger fixed income allocation.
Yeah.
So I think your risk is very important. What I have seen is that people tend to be over risky during good markets and very conservative during bad markets. And that is not a good thing. You should have a consistent risk profile.
Okay.
If you are risky, you stay risky unless, say over a long term you want to change it.
Yeah.
But ideally you should stick with one risk profile.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Or you could keep it goal based, like you said.
Or you can keep it goal based. Absolutely. Third is your allocation. I think based on the risk and your goals, you should figure out what your allocation should be in different funds.
Yes.
Ideally, if you're looking at a conservative portfolio, then ideally you should look at a, say, 30%, 40% allocation to equity, which can be in a large cap or a mid cap.
Okay.
Or you can have a fixed income, so 50%. You can have some, commodities exposure. So I think your allocation is probably the most important decision you will make, not the selection. There is a statistic in investing that 90% of your long-term returns.
Yeah.
So the returns that you will make in, say, 20, 25, 30 years, or even in 20 years, 90% of that will come from your allocation, not your fund selection.
Acha.
So whether you buy this fund or that fund does not matter. What really matters is how much of your wealth is distributed across equity, fixed income, gold, international,
and how you proportion
real estate, how you proportion that.
Okay.
So allocation is extremely important, and that's why I think people tend to over-optimize on which fund to buy.
Yeah.
Should I buy this mid-cap fund versus that mid-cap fund? I think what's important is people need to optimize for what should my allocation be.
Yeah.
That's why these three things are very important, and I think investors should be relatively comfortable with the decisions on these three things before
Yeah.
they can start making their first investment.
Definitely. While you're talking about asset allocation, I could visualize myself doing some mistakes in the past, which I've done. That you've allocated, we've taken a lot of risky products and given a lot of allocation to that. And I suddenly realized that my portfolio base is very volatile. You know, every time something goes off, my portfolio goes for a toss.
Yeah.